The diplomatic vessel appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's orbital sensors showed nothing but empty space and the familiar dance of satellites. The next moment, a massive ship materialized above the Atlantic Ocean, casting a shadow that stretched from New York to London. President Marcus Webb stood in the White House Situation Room, staring at the screens that showed the alien vessel from every angle. It was enormous, easily 5 kilometers long, shaped like a crescent moon with towers jutting from its surface. The design spoke of power and ancient purpose. "Mr. President, they're broadcasting on all frequencies," said General Harrison, his face pale. "Every language, every dialect. They want to talk." Webb nodded slowly. Humanity had reached for the stars only 50 years ago. They had built colonies on Mars, mining stations on Europa, and a dozen research outposts scattered through the solar system, but they had never found another intelligent species. Until now. "Put them through," Webb said. The main screen flickered and showed a figure that was almost human, but not quite. Ambassador Kelrick stood nearly 8 feet tall, his skin a pale blue-gray, his eyes large and golden. He wore robes that shimmered with light, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ages. "Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Ambassador Kelrick of the Valorian Empire. I come bearing a message from His Supreme Majesty, Emperor Thardus the Eternal, ruler of 10,000 worlds and master of the known galaxy." Webb glanced at the military advisors around him. 10,000 worlds. The number seemed impossible. "Welcome, Ambassador. I am President Marcus Webb, representing the United Earth Government. We are honored by your visit." Kelrick smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Honor is a curious word for what comes next, President Webb. I will be direct, as the Empire values efficiency. Your species has developed faster than light travel. This achievement has brought you to our attention. The galaxy is not empty, human. It is ruled. And all who achieve the stars must choose their place within the order." "What kind of order?" Webb asked carefully. "The Valorian Empire has maintained peace across the galaxy for 3,000 years. We have ended wars, brought prosperity to primitive worlds, and created a civilization that spans countless stars. In return, member species contribute to the Empire. They follow our laws, accept our protection, and provide resources and loyalty." "You mean they surrender?" said Admiral Sarah Chen, stepping forward. She commanded Earth's defense fleet, 12 carriers and 200 smaller warships. Her voice was steady, but her jaw was tight. Kelrick turned his golden eyes to her. "Surrender is such an ugly word, Admiral. We prefer integration. Your military forces will be dissolved. Your government will operate under Imperial oversight. Your resources will be allocated according to Imperial needs. In exchange, you will receive technology, protection, and a place in the greatest civilization the universe has ever known." "And if we refuse?" Webb asked. The ambassador's expression hardened. "No species has refused the Empire in 800 years, President Webb. Those who did are remembered only in historical archives. I tell you this not as a threat, but as fact. You have 30 days to consider your answer. Choose wisdom over pride." The transmission ended. The Situation Room erupted in voices, everyone talking at once. Webb raised his hand for silence. "I want every expert we have analyzing that ship. I want to know everything about this empire. And I want options. All of them." Over the next week, humanity learned the terrible truth. The galaxy was crowded with life. Thousands of species filled the stars, and almost all of them bowed to the Valorian Empire. The few that had resisted were extinct. Dr. James Okonkwo led the scientific analysis of the Valorian vessel. He was Earth's top xenobiologist, a thin man with sharp eyes and a brilliant mind. His report made grim reading. "The ship is powerful beyond anything we can build," Okonkwo explained to the assembled leaders. "Their weapons could level cities from orbit. Their shields could shrug off nuclear missiles. But there's something interesting. The technology is old, very old. It's been maintained and copied, but not improved. They're using designs that might be thousands of years old." "Why would they do that?" asked Webb. "Because it works," Admiral Chen said quietly. "If you're the strongest power in the galaxy, why change? Why innovate when no one can challenge you?" The global debate raged. Some nations wanted to accept the terms. They argued that humanity was too weak to resist, that survival was more important than pride. Others demanded defiance. They said that freedom lost could never be regained, that bending the knee to aliens would doom humanity forever. Webb spent sleepless nights reviewing the reports, talking to advisors, and staring at the stars. He thought about his children, about the billions of people who depended on his decision. He thought about every human who had ever lived, every struggle for freedom, every war fought to remain free. On the 29th day, Ambassador Kelrix returned. His ship was joined by 5 others, smaller but still massive. They arranged themselves in orbit around Earth like a cage. "President Webb," Kelrix said when the transmission opened, "the time has come. What is your answer?" Webb stood alone in front of the camera. Behind him, the flags of every nation on Earth hung in silent witness. He had made his decision and he knew the cost. But he also knew that some things were worth any price. "Ambassador Kelrix, I speak for all humanity when I give you our answer. We have studied your empire. We have learned your history. We understand the choice you offer, and we reject it." Kelrix's eyes widened slightly. "You cannot be serious." "I am completely serious. Humanity does not kneel. We will not surrender our freedom, our sovereignty, or our future. We are willing to die as free people rather than live as slaves." "You are fools," Kelrix said, anger coloring his voice for the first time. "You are children playing with weapons you do not understand. The Emperor has been generous in offering you integration. Do not mistake mercy for weakness," Webb smiled sadly. "We are not children, Ambassador. We are humans. We have fought wars for thousands of years. We have built civilizations from ashes. We have survived plagues, natural disasters, and our own worst impulses. We know exactly what we are choosing." "Then you choose extinction," Kelrix said coldly. "No, we choose to fight. Your empire rules through fear and overwhelming force. You believe that no one will resist because resistance seems hopeless, but you have never fought humans before. You have never faced a species that would rather die standing than live kneeling." Admiral Chen stepped into view beside the president. "We have studied your tactics, Ambassador. We have analyzed your ships. We may not win, but we will make you bleed for every inch, and we will make sure the entire galaxy knows what you really are. Bullies who destroy those who refuse to submit." Kelrix stared at them for a long moment. "You have made your choice. The Emperor will hear of this defiance. A punishment fleet will arrive within 30 days. I would tell you to prepare, but there is no preparation for what comes next." The Valorian Empire does not lose. The transmission ended. The alien ships began moving away from Earth orbit, accelerating toward the edge of the solar system. They vanished in flashes of light as they jumped to faster-than-light speed. Webb turned to face the room full of military commanders, scientists, and world leaders. Every face showed fear, determination, or both. "We have 30 days, he said quietly. 30 days to prepare for a war we cannot win. But we will fight anyway, because we are human and humans do not surrender. Get to work. Make them regret ever finding us." As the room emptied, people rushing to their tasks, Admiral Chen remained behind. She looked at the president with tired eyes. "Did we just doom our species?" she asked. Webb shook his head. "No, we gave our species a chance. Maybe we lose. Maybe we all die. But our children and their children will know that we fought. They will know that humanity refused to bow. And maybe, just maybe, we will surprise everyone, including ourselves." Outside, across Earth and throughout the solar system, humanity began preparing for war. Factories converted to military production. Scientists worked around the clock on new weapons. Soldiers trained for battles in the darkness of space. Every person understood what was coming, and every person was ready to fight. The countdown had begun. In 30 days, the Valorian Empire would arrive expecting an easy victory. They would find something very different. They would find humanity at war. The Valorian punishment fleet arrived exactly 30 days later. 50 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system, their massive hulls gleaming in the light of the distant sun. Each ship was a kilometer long, bristling with weapons that had conquered countless worlds. Fleet Commander Vex stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. 50 ships against one primitive world. It was almost insulting how easy this would be. The humans had rejected the Emperor's generous offer. Now they would learn the price of defiance. "Begin the advance," Vex ordered. "Standard formation. These humans need to see the might of the Empire before they die. Perhaps some will surrender when they realize their mistake." The fleet moved forward, engines burning bright as they accelerated toward the inner solar system. It would take 3 days to reach Earth at sublight speeds. Vex expected the humans to beg for mercy long before then. He was wrong. The first attack came from nowhere. Hundreds of objects too small to register as ships appeared on sensors. Vex frowned as his tactical officer shouted warnings. Then the objects reached the fleet and everything exploded into chaos. The objects were missiles, but unlike any missile the Valorians had encountered. Nuclear warheads detonated in brilliant flashes of light and radiation. The fleet's shields held but barely, and then the second wave hit. These missiles were different. They did not explode. They simply accelerated to incredible speeds, becoming kinetic projectiles that slammed into shields with devastating force. 3 Valorian ships lost their shields completely. A fourth took a direct hit to its engine section and began spinning out of control. "Return fire!" Vex screamed. "Find their ships and destroy them." But there were no ships to target. The missiles came from launch platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt, scattered across millions of kilometers of space. They were automated, programmed to fire and relocate. By the time the Valorians identified a launcher, it had already moved. Admiral Sarah Chen watched the battle unfold from Earth's command center. The screen showed the chaos in the outer system, each flash of light representing a missile strike or weapons discharge. Her plan was working better than she had hoped. "Wave 3 launch," she ordered calmly. The third wave was not missiles at all. It was information warfare. Powerful signals flooded the Valorian communication channels, jamming their fleet coordination. False sensor readings appeared on their displays. Navigation systems reported incorrect positions. The ancient Valorian systems, unchanged for centuries, had no defense against modern electronic warfare. Vex felt panic rising in his chest. In 3,000 years, no one had fought the Empire this way. Battles were supposed to be orderly affairs, fleet against fleet, with the stronger side winning through superior firepower. These humans were not following the rules. "Maintain formation," he ordered. "Continue toward Earth. We will crush their fleet when we find it." But Earth's fleet was not waiting to be found. Admiral Chen had divided her forces into small groups, each operating independently. They struck from unexpected angles, fired their weapons, and retreated before the Valorians could respond. It was guerrilla warfare adapted for space. One group of human destroyers appeared from behind Mars, moving fast and firing everything they had. Railgun projectiles and plasma torpedoes slammed into a Valorian cruiser that had strayed too far from the formation. The cruiser's shields collapsed under the sudden assault. Its hull split open, atmosphere venting into space. By the time the Valorian fleet responded, the human ships were gone, accelerating away at speeds that surprised the aliens. Earth's ships were smaller and weaker, but they were also faster and more maneuverable, and their commanders fought with creativity born of desperation. The battle continued for days. The Valorian fleet pushed forward relentlessly, but every kilometer cost them. Hidden mines detonated as they passed. Automated drones swarmed damaged ships, overwhelming point defenses. Human fighters, tiny craft carrying nuclear-tipped missiles, made suicide runs that no Valorian could have imagined. Dr. Okonkwo watched the battle data with growing excitement. His biological analysis of the Valorians had revealed something interesting. They came from a high-gravity world. Earth's gravity was actually lighter than what they were used to. But more importantly, their immune systems had never encountered Earth diseases. "It's time," he told Admiral Chen. "Release the packages, special missiles, designed to break apart before impact, scattered biological agents across the Valorian fleet. The agents were modified Earth bacteria, harmless to humans but potentially deadly to aliens. Within hours, Valorian crews began falling ill. Nothing fatal, but enough to reduce combat efficiency by 30%. Commander Vex clutched his command console, fighting nausea and fever. Half his crew was sick. 7 of his ships were destroyed or disabled. The humans had inflicted more damage in 1 week than the Empire had suffered in the last century. How was this possible? "Sir, we're approaching Earth orbit," his tactical officer reported, his voice weak with illness. Vex straightened, drawing on his pride and training. "Good. We will bombard their world into submission. They cannot hide from orbital strikes." But as the Valorian fleet entered Earth orbit, they found the planet's defenses waiting. Space stations bristled with weapons. Orbital platforms hidden on the dark side of the moon now revealed themselves. And Earth's remaining fleet, battered but unbroken, rose to meet them. Admiral Chen commanded from her flagship, the carrier Independence. Her face was calm despite the impossible odds. She had lost 60% of her fleet getting to this moment, but every loss had served a purpose. Every sacrifice had weakened the enemy. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We stand between Earth and those who would enslave us. Our families watch from below. Our ancestors watch from history. Show these aliens what humanity means. Show them we would rather die free than live in chains. All ships engage! The final battle for Earth began. Human ships threw themselves at the Valorian fleet with suicidal courage. Missiles filled the space between fleets, so many that sensors could barely track them all. Laser fire crisscrossed the darkness. Ships exploded in silent fury. The Independence took hit after hit, its shields failing, its armor burning away. But Chen kept fighting, kept commanding, kept her fleet together through sheer force of will. Around her, human ships died gloriously, taking Valorian vessels with them whenever possible. A human destroyer, engines dead and life support failing, aimed itself at a Valorian battleship and activated its remaining thrusters. The impact breached the battleship's hull in 3 places. Both ships died together, locked in a final embrace. Commander Vex watched his fleet disintegrate. These humans were insane. They fought with no regard for their own survival. They used tactics that no civilized species would consider. They turned everything into a weapon, from asteroids to their own dying ships. All ships retreat, he finally ordered, the words bitter in his mouth. Fall back to the outer system. We must regroup. The surviving Valorian ships turned and fled. Of the 50 ships that had arrived so confidently, only 30 remained combat-capable. Behind them, Earth's defenses held. The planet was saved, at least for now. Admiral Chen stood on the damaged bridge of the Independence, watching the enemy retreat. Around her, crew members were crying, cheering, or simply staring in disbelief. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had won, but the cost had been terrible. Earth's fleet was shattered. The orbital defenses were in ruins. The planet itself had taken damage from the few bombardment strikes that got through, and Chen knew this was only the beginning. President Webb appeared on the communication screen, his face lined with exhaustion and pride. Admiral, congratulations. You've won humanity's first victory against the Empire. Thank you, sir. But they'll be back. And next time they'll bring more ships. Webb nodded. I know. But we've proven something important today. We've shown the galaxy that the Empire can be beaten. We've shown them that humans don't surrender. And we've bought ourselves time. Across the galaxy, thousands of species watched recordings of the battle in shock and amazement. For 3,000 years, the Valorian Empire had seemed invincible. But a primitive species from a single world had just bloodied the Empire's nose. Some species felt hope for the first time in generations. Others began planning rebellions. The galaxy would never be the same. In the Valorian capital, Emperor Thardus received Commander Vex's report with cold fury. 30 ships lost to primitives. It was humiliating. It was unacceptable. It was a challenge to the Empire's authority that could not stand. Assemble the Grand Fleet, the Emperor commanded. 500 ships. I want these humans erased from existence. I want their world burned to ash. And I want every species in the galaxy to see what happens to those who defy the Empire. The war had truly begun. Earth had won its first battle through courage, creativity, and the willingness to sacrifice everything. But the Empire's full might was coming. Humanity had 6 months to prepare. 6 months to find a way to survive against odds that made the first battle look easy. 6 months to prove that they deserved to be free. 6 months. That was all the time humanity had before the Valorian Grand Fleet would arrive with overwhelming force. President Webb stood in the newly rebuilt command center, looking at the strategic display that showed Earth's desperate preparations. The first battle had taught humanity valuable lessons. The Valorians were powerful but predictable. They followed ancient military doctrine, tactics that had worked for thousands of years against everyone they had faced, but they had never faced humans before. We need to be smarter, not stronger, Admiral Chen had said in the strategy meeting. We cannot match their firepower. We cannot build 500 warships in 6 months, but we can make the solar system into a nightmare for them. Every factory on Earth, Mars, and the orbital stations worked without stopping. But they were not building traditional warships. Instead, they built thousands of automated platforms, each one packed with weapons and programmed with simple but deadly instructions. They built mines that could hide in asteroid fields for months. They built decoy ships that looked real on sensors but were actually bombs. Dr. Okonkwo led a team of scientists in developing new biological weapons. The first attack had been crude, modified bacteria that made the Valorians sick. Now he was creating targeted viruses, agents that would attack Valorian physiology specifically while leaving humans unharmed. It troubled his conscience, but he pushed those feelings aside. This was about survival. "We're weaponizing evolution," he explained to President Webb. "The Valorians evolved on a different world with different diseases. Their immune systems have no experience with Earth pathogens. We are turning biology itself into a weapon." Meanwhile, Earth's intelligence services made contact with other species in the galaxy. Most were too afraid of the Empire to help openly, but some provided information. Humanity learned about Valorian supply chains, communication protocols, and most importantly, their weaknesses. A species called the Ketheri, who had been conquered 200 years ago, sent encrypted data about Valorian ship designs. The information revealed that the Empire used the same basic hull design for all their ships, with only minor variations. It was efficient for maintenance and production, but it meant finding a weakness in one ship meant finding a weakness in all of them. Admiral Chen studied the data with growing excitement. "Look at this," she told her staff officers. "They route all their power systems through central conduits. If we can hit these specific points, we can cripple entire ships with targeted strikes." Earth's special forces began conducting raids on Valorian outposts in nearby systems. Small teams using captured Valorian technology to avoid detection. They struck supply depots, communication stations, and sensor arrays. Each raid was minor in itself, but together they disrupted the Empire's preparations and gathered valuable intelligence. One raid captured a Valorian officer named Commander Thex. He was different from the others, less arrogant and more thoughtful. During interrogation, he surprised his captors by asking questions instead of threatening them. "Why do you fight so hard?" Thex asked Admiral Chen when she came to interview him. "Surely you know you cannot win. The Empire has resources beyond counting. Why not accept integration and survive?" Chen studied the alien carefully. "Because survival without freedom is not survival at all. It is just a slower form of death. We are human. We would rather die on our feet than live on our knees." Thex was quiet for a long moment. "I am beginning to understand. The Empire has forgotten what it means to fight for something you believe in. We fight because we are ordered to fight. You fight because you choose to fight. There is power in that choice." As the weeks passed, something unexpected happened. Commander Thex began working with the humans, providing detailed information about Valorian tactics and fleet operations. He had not exactly defected, but he was no longer fighting for the Empire either. He was searching for something he had lost somewhere in 3,000 years of conquests. The Empire was not always like this, Thex explained during one planning session. Long ago, the Valorian people were explorers and builders, but conquest became easier than creation. Domination became simpler than cooperation. We forgot how to do anything except rule. The most ambitious project was called Horizon. It was humanity's last resort, the weapon they would use only if Earth itself was about to fall. Scientists worked in secret underground facilities, building something that had never been tried before. President Webb visited the Horizon facility in its final stages. The project director, Dr. Sarah Kim, showed him the weapon with obvious pride mixed with fear. "We have created a network of faster-than-light missiles," Kim explained. "Each one carries a massive warhead and can reach any point in the galaxy within hours. If we activate Horizon, we can strike every major Valorian world simultaneously." Webb stared at the sleek missiles in their launch tubes. "This is genocide. Billions of innocent Valorians would die." "Yes," Kim said quietly, "but they would take us with them if they could. This is mutual assured destruction. If the Empire destroys Earth, we destroy them. It is the only way to make them think twice." Webb signed the authorization papers with a heavy heart. He hoped they would never need to use Horizon, but he would not let humanity die without taking their killers with them. As the 6-month deadline approached, resistance movements began appearing on other conquered worlds. News of humanity's first victory had spread. Species that had accepted imperial rule for centuries began asking dangerous questions. If humans could fight back, why couldn't they? Small acts of sabotage occurred across the Empire. Factory output dropped. Supply ships suffered mysterious accidents. Communication networks experienced unexplained failures. The Empire's infrastructure, stable for thousands of years, began showing cracks. Emperor Thardus watched these developments with growing anger and fear. The humans were not just defeating his fleets. They were inspiring rebellion. They were showing other species that the Empire could be resisted. This could not stand. "Accelerate the Grand Fleet's departure," he ordered his admirals. "I want those humans destroyed before they can cause more damage. Make an example that the entire galaxy will remember." The Valorian Grand Fleet assembled in orbit above the Empire's capital world. 500 ships representing the accumulated military might of thousands of years of conquest. Crews from dozens of subject species manned the vessels, all loyal or at least obedient to imperial authority. Grand Admiral Korth commanded the fleet from his massive dreadnought. He was the Empire's finest military mind, a veteran of 100 campaigns. He had studied the recordings of the first battle extensively. These humans fought with courage and creativity, but they were still primitives. Weight of numbers would crush them. "All ships prepare for jump," Korth commanded. "We will emerge at the edge of their system and advance in battle formation. No clever tactics will save them this time. We will overwhelm them with raw power." On Earth, Admiral Chen received word that the Grand Fleet had departed. She stood on the observation deck of the rebuilt orbital station, looking down at the blue-green world that was worth dying for. "They're coming," she said softly to President Webb over the communication link. "I know," Webb replied. "Are we ready?" Chen smiled grimly. "As ready as we can be. We have turned this entire solar system into a trap. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris is a potential weapon. They want to destroy us. We are going to make them pay for every meter of space." "And if they break through?" Webb asked. "Then we activate Horizon. If we fall, the Empire falls with us. Mutual destruction. They need to know that killing us means killing themselves." Webb was quiet for a moment. "It should not have come to this. We should be exploring the galaxy together, learning from each other. Instead, we are preparing for mutual annihilation. The Empire made that choice when they demanded our surrender," Chen said. "We are just responding to their threat. But maybe if we survive this, things can change. Commander Thex has shown us that not all Valorians support the Empire. Maybe this war will destroy the old order and allow something better to be built." Across Earth and throughout the solar system, billions of humans waited for the coming storm. Children were evacuated to underground shelters. Soldiers manned their stations. Scientists made final checks on weapon systems. Everyone understood what was at stake. This was the battle that would decide humanity's fate. The warning came 3 days later. Sensors detected massive, faster-than-light distortions at the edge of the solar system. The Grand Fleet was arriving. 500 Valorian warships dropped into normal space in perfect formation, their weapons already charging, their shields at maximum power. Admiral Chen looked at the tactical display showing the overwhelming enemy force. She thought about her family in the shelters below. She thought about all the people depending on her decisions. She thought about humanity's long history of fighting impossible odds and somehow surviving. "All stations, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy is here. This is the moment we have been preparing for. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. And remember that the galaxy is watching. Show them that humanity does not surrender. All units engage." The battle for Earth was about to begin again. This time there would be no retreat, no second chances. The Valorian Grand Fleet advanced toward Earth with the confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. 500 warships moved in perfect formation, their sensor arrays scanning for human forces, their weapons ready to fire. Grand Admiral Korth stood on his command bridge, watching the display with satisfaction. "No resistance yet," his tactical officer reported. "They must be hiding behind their world, hoping we will show mercy." Korth smiled coldly. "There will be no mercy. The Emperor has ordered complete destruction. These humans will serve as an example to anyone else who thinks to defy the Empire." Then everything went wrong at once. The first wave of attacks came from the asteroid belt. Thousands of automated platforms that had been hidden for months suddenly activated. They were not impressive individually, each one barely more than a weapons pod with basic guidance. But there were so many of them, firing from every direction, that the Valorian sensors were overwhelmed. Missiles streaked through the darkness, each one following an erratic path designed to avoid point defense systems. Nuclear detonations lit up space like a deadly fireworks display. The Valorian shields held, but the sheer volume of fire forced the fleet to slow its advance. "Continue forward," Korth ordered. These automated weapons cannot stop us. They are merely a nuisance. But the nuisance was about to become a nightmare. Hidden among the asteroids were not just weapons platforms, but also specially modified rocks. Human engineers had attached powerful engines to dozens of asteroids and programmed them with simple instructions. Accelerate toward the Valorian fleet and detonate the nuclear charges embedded inside them on impact. The first asteroid struck a Valorian cruiser at tremendous speed. The ship's shields absorbed some of the impact, but the kinetic energy was too great. The cruiser's hull buckled and tore. Then the nuclear charges detonated, vaporizing what remained. The crew never had time to scream. More asteroids followed, each one a multi-ton kinetic weapon enhanced with explosives. The Valorian fleet tried to shoot them down, but the asteroids were massive and hard to destroy. Every minute another ship was damaged or destroyed. Admiral Chen watched from Earth orbit, her face grim with satisfaction. Phase 2. Activate. Hidden platforms scattered throughout the inner solar system began broadcasting powerful jamming signals. The Valorian fleet's communication network, unchanged for centuries, could not adapt. Ships lost contact with each other. Navigation systems reported false positions. Tactical displays showed ghost targets that did not exist. In the confusion, Earth's remaining fleet struck. Admiral Chen had learned from the first battle. Instead of keeping her ships together in a vulnerable formation, she had divided them into dozens of small squadrons. Each squadron operated independently, striking targets of opportunity and retreating before the Valorians could respond. One human squadron targeted a Valorian supply ship, crippling it with precise railgun fire. Another squadron ambushed a separated destroyer, overwhelming it with numbers. A third squadron did not attack at all, instead broadcasting false signals that drew a dozen Valorian ships into a minefield. Grand Admiral Korth struggled to maintain control of his fleet. His commanders were experienced and well-trained, but they had no experience with this type of warfare. The humans were not fighting like a proper military force. They were fighting like pirates, terrorists, guerrillas. It was dishonorable and effective. Reform the fleet, he commanded. Tighten formation and maintain shield overlap. We will advance slowly but securely. The Valorian fleet pulled together, creating a wall of overlapping shields that was nearly impenetrable. It worked against conventional weapons. But the humans had stopped being conventional the moment the war began. Dr. Okonkwo activated the biological warfare protocols. Specially designed missiles broke apart as they approached the Valorian fleet, releasing clouds of modified viruses and bacteria. The particles were too small to be shot down. They drifted through space until they were pulled into the Valorian ships by their air circulation systems. Within hours, Valorian crews began falling sick. The symptoms started mild but grew worse. Fever, weakness, disorientation. Nothing fatal, Okonkwo had made sure of that. Dead enemies could become martyrs. Sick enemies became burdens, consuming medical resources and reducing combat effectiveness. Korth himself felt the illness coming on but refused to leave his post. Around him, his bridge crew struggled to perform their duties through fever and pain. Medical officers reported that 30% of the fleet was incapacitated. The number was rising. "These humans are monsters," one of his officers said weakly. "They use weapons that no civilized species would consider." Korth wanted to agree, but another part of him understood. The humans were desperate. They were fighting for survival against impossible odds. Of course, they would use every weapon available. What else could they do? The fleet continued its advance, slower now, bleeding ships with every passing hour. The journey from the outer system to Earth orbit should have taken 3 days. It took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of constant attacks, traps, ambushes, and psychological warfare. 3 weeks of horror unlike anything the Valorian Empire had experienced in millennia. Human suicide drones piloted by artificial intelligence rammed into Valorian ships with devastating effect. Each drone carried enough explosives to cripple a cruiser. The Valorians shot down hundreds of them, but hundreds more got through. Minefields appeared where sensors had shown empty space. Hidden weapons platforms activated as the Valorians passed, attacking from behind. Decoy ships drew fire away from real threats. The entire solar system had become a killing ground designed by humans who understood that they could not win through strength, but might win through making the cost of victory unbearable. Finally, the battered Valorian fleet reached Earth orbit. Of 500 ships, 400 remained, but most of those were damaged to some degree. Crew casualties were massive. Morale was broken. The fleet that had arrived so confidently was now a wounded, angry beast, and Earth's final defense was waiting. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of her new flagship, the carrier Defiance. Around Earth, hidden on the dark side of the moon, buried in orbital stations that looked like wreckage, thousands of weapons platforms powered up. Railguns that had been silent for weeks now charged their capacitors. Missile tubes opened. Energy weapons locked onto targets. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. The enemy has reached our home. They are wounded but still dangerous. This is our last stand. Fight with everything you have. Fight for your families below. Fight for humanity's freedom. And if we must die, we die making sure they never forget what it cost to attack Earth. All units fire at will. The space around Earth exploded into battle. Thousands of weapons fired simultaneously, creating a storm of destruction that overwhelmed sensors. The moon's mass drivers launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. Orbital platforms unleashed everything they had. Earth's surviving fleet emerged from hiding and charged straight into the Valorian formation. The battle was chaos. Ships exploded. Missiles filled the space between fleets so densely that collisions destroyed dozens of them. Energy beams crisscrossed the darkness. Debris from destroyed vessels became deadly projectiles that damaged other ships. Grand Admiral Korth watched his perfect fleet disintegrate. Commander Thex had been right. These humans were different from any species the Empire had faced. They did not fight for conquest or resources. They fought for survival and freedom. And beings fighting for those reasons did not know how to surrender. A human destroyer, its hull breached and life support failing, aimed itself at Korth's dreadnought and activated its remaining engines. The crew could have evacuated. Instead, they stayed at their posts and drove their dying ship into the enemy flagship. The impact broke through the dreadnought's shields and tore a massive hole in its side. Korth was thrown from his command console. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. He pulled himself up and looked at what remained of his fleet. Half destroyed. The survivors were scattered and disorganized, and the humans were still fighting with undiminished fury. All ships retreat, he ordered, the words tasting like poison. Fall back beyond weapon range. We must regroup. The surviving Valorian ships turned and fled. They had come to destroy Earth. Instead, Earth had destroyed them. Of 500 ships, barely 200 escaped, most of them damaged. The Grand Fleet, the pride of the Empire, had been defeated by primitives who refused to accept their place in the Galactic Order. Admiral Chen watched them go, tears streaming down her face. Earth had won. The cost had been terrible. Millions dead, most of her fleet destroyed. The orbital infrastructure in ruins. Large parts of Earth's surface damaged by the few bombardment strikes that had gotten through. But they had won. President Webb's face appeared on her screen. He looked like he had aged 10 years in the last few weeks. Admiral, report. The enemy is retreating, Mr. President. Earth holds. We have won. Webb closed his eyes for a moment. At what cost? Everything, Chen said quietly. We gave everything, but we are still free. Throughout the galaxy, recordings of the battle spread across communication networks. Species that had bowed to the Empire for centuries watched in amazement as humans, primitives who had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel, defeated the Grand Fleet. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, the galaxy was a different place. The Valorian Empire, which had seemed eternal and unchangeable, was fracturing. Rebellions burned across dozens of worlds. Species that had accepted imperial rule for generations were demanding independence. And at the center of this transformation was humanity, the species that had shown everyone that the Empire could be resisted. President Marcus Webb stood in the rebuilt Situation Room, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Earth was still healing from the battle. Cities were being rebuilt. The dead were being mourned. But humanity had survived, and now they faced a new challenge. What came next? Intelligence reports that the Empire is assembling another fleet, General Harrison said, pointing to the display. 2,000 ships this time. They are gathering forces from every corner of their territory. Admiral Chen, who had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces, shook her head. 2,000 ships will not help them if we activate Horizon. And they know it. This is a show of force meant to intimidate us and suppress the rebellions. Commander Thex, who now served as an advisor to Earth's government, studied the reports with troubled eyes. The Emperor is trapped. If he backs down, he looks weak and the Empire collapses. If he attacks Earth, You will activate Horizon and destroy the Valorian homeworld along with billions of innocent civilians. There is no good solution, Webb sighed heavily. The weight of billions of lives rested on his shoulders. Then we need to give him a third option. One where he saves face and we all survive. Negotiate? Harrison said incredulously. After everything they have done? They tried to enslave us, Mr. President. They attacked our world. Millions died because of them. I know, Webb said quietly. Believe me, I know. I dream about the dead every night, but we cannot let anger drive our decisions. If we activate Horizon, we become the very thing we have been fighting against. We become conquerors and killers of innocence. Is that who we want humanity to be? The room was silent. Everyone understood the dilemma. Humanity had the power to destroy the Empire completely, but using that power would mean becoming monsters themselves. Admiral Chen spoke up. The Emperor needs a way to end this conflict without appearing to surrender. What if we offer him something he needs more than victory over Earth? What does he need? Webb asked. Stability, Thex said slowly. The rebellions are spreading. The Empire is bleeding territory every day. The Emperor needs to stop the bleeding. If we can offer him a way to do that, he might negotiate. Webb considered this. An idea was forming, audacious and risky, but perhaps the only way forward. What if we propose a new galactic order? Not an empire, but a federation of free worlds. The Valorians keep their homeworld and any worlds that choose to remain with them, but other species get to choose independence. And we all agree to mutual defense and trade. The Emperor would never agree, Harrison said. You are asking him to give up his empire. No, Chen said, catching on to Webb's thinking. We are asking him to transform his empire into something sustainable. Right now, he is bleeding ships and resources trying to hold on to worlds that hate him. If he voluntarily reorganizes into a federation, he gets credit for being progressive. He stops the rebellions by giving people what they want. And he gets to rule a smaller but more stable territory. Thex nodded slowly. It could work. The Emperor is not stupid. He can see that the old order is dying. If you present this as his idea, as his gift to the galaxy, he saves face and actually gains respect, and you get humanity's freedom without mutual destruction. Webb made his decision. Send a message to the Emperor. Tell him we wish to negotiate. Tell him humanity has a proposal that will benefit everyone, and make sure he knows that Horizon remains active. Mutual destruction is still an option if negotiations fail. The message was sent. For 3 days there was no response. Earth's military remained on high alert. Scientists kept Horizon ready for activation at a moment's notice. Everyone waited to see if there would be peace or final war. Then Ambassador Kelrix returned. The same Valorian noble who had delivered the original ultimatum now came seeking peace. He looked different now, less arrogant and more weary. The war had changed everyone. President Webb, Kelrix said when the transmission opened. The Emperor has sent me to hear your proposal. I will be honest with you. The Empire is dying. The rebellions grow stronger every day. We cannot hold our territory through force alone. We need a new path. Webb nodded respectfully. Then let us find that path together. Humanity proposes the creation of a galactic federation. Every species gets to choose their government freely. Those who wish independence receive it. Those who wish to remain aligned with the Valorian Empire may do so. But it will be a choice, not a mandate. Go on, Kelrix said carefully. All member worlds of the Federation agree to mutual defense treaties. An attack on one is an attack on all. We establish free trade zones and shared technology development. The Valorian Empire transforms from conquerors to partners. Your Emperor can present this as his vision for a new galactic age. He gets credit for bringing peace and progress. Kelrix was quiet for a long moment. And what guarantees does the Empire have that this Federation will not simply become a coalition against us? Earth will deactivate Horizon, Webb said. We will dismantle our weapons of mass destruction. In return, the Valorian Empire does the same. We all agree to resolve disputes through negotiation rather than war, and if any member breaks these agreements, they face sanctions from all other members. You would give up your greatest weapon? Kelrix asked in disbelief. Yes, because we understand something that the Empire has forgotten. True strength does not come from the ability to destroy others. It comes from the ability to build together. We can spend the next 100 years fighting until we all die, or we can spend it creating something better. The choice is yours. Kelrix transmitted humanity's proposal back to the Valorian homeworld. The debate in the Imperial Court was fierce. Hardliners wanted to continue the war. Moderates saw the wisdom in Webb's proposal. The Emperor himself remained silent, weighing the options. Finally, after a week of deliberation, the Emperor made his decision. He would accept humanity's proposal, but with conditions. The Valorian homeworld would remain independent, but join the Federation. Worlds that wished to stay aligned with Valoria could do so. But the Emperor would no longer claim divine authority over the galaxy. He would become a leader among equals. The Treaty of Geneva was signed 6 months later. Representatives from hundreds of species gathered on Earth to witness the creation of the Galactic Federation. The Valorian Emperor attended personally, the first time he had left his homeworld in 1,000 years. President Webb and Emperor Thardus stood together before the assembled delegates. Webb spoke first. Today we end 3,000 years of empire and begin a new era of cooperation. We have learned that freedom cannot be given. It must be claimed. But we have also learned that enemies can become partners if both sides choose peace over pride. Emperor Thardus spoke next, his voice carrying across the hall. The Valorian Empire was built on strength and maintained through force. But strength without wisdom is meaningless. Humanity has taught us that there is greater power in freedom than in control. I renounce my claim to rule the galaxy. Instead, I offer partnership and friendship to all species who will accept it. The treaty was signed. The old empire ended. The new federation began. It was not perfect. There were still tensions, still conflicts to resolve. Some worlds chose independence and struggled to govern themselves. Others remained with Valoria and prospered. Earth became a respected voice in galactic affairs, not through military might but through the example they had set. Admiral Chen attended the signing ceremony, but did not speak. She stood in the back, watching the politicians and diplomats celebrate. She thought about all the people who had died to reach this moment, the soldiers who had sacrificed themselves, the civilians caught in the crossfire. The cost of freedom had been terrible. Commander Thex found her after the ceremony. "You do not seem happy, Admiral." "I am relieved," Chen said, "but not happy. Too many died for me to feel happy. I did my duty. We won our freedom, but the memories of what we had to do to win will haunt me forever." Thex nodded in understanding. That is the burden of those who fight for what is right. The cost never goes away. But look at what you achieved. The galaxy is free because you refused to surrender. Billions of beings will live in freedom because of your courage. Chen smiled sadly. I hope they remember why we fought. I hope they understand that freedom is not free. It must be earned and protected. Every generation must choose liberty over tyranny. 1 year after the treaty signing, Earth launched its first exploration fleet. 12 ships equipped with the latest technology, both human and alien. Their mission was not conquest but discovery. They would explore unknown regions of space, make contact with new species, and spread the message that the galaxy was now a place of cooperation rather than domination. Admiral Chen, who had retired from military service, stood on Earth's surface watching the ships launch. Her children were with her, looking up at the sky with wonder in their eyes. They would grow up in a galaxy very different from the one she had known.